Okay, so thank you everyone for joining Parachute today for our Youth as Changemakers panel. I'd like to start off with a land acknowledgement. So while we meet today on a virtual platform, we encourage you all to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. From coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. So very excited to welcome you all. And we have three great people who are young people who are advocating for change in their communities. They all have very different portfolios, but they are all doing inspiring work for the Parachute Youth Ambassador program. Before we begin, my colleague Anne Stewart, who leads our youth programming, is going to provide some context on this work and some backgrounds in our effort to meaningfully engage youth, not just as recipients of our work, but as change agents in the community, and really kind of trying to put youth at the center of our work around road safety and mobility. After Anne presents, we will jump into the panel, and you'll have a chance to hear from Alex Depew, who is a fourth-year forensic science student at Trent, Joshua Little, a biomedical engineering student at Toronto Metropolitan University, and Julia Gallio-Talanza, a junior engagement coordinator in the transport department at the City of Vaughan. So we're going to hear some really great stories and have some great discussions around youth engagement. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Anne, who's going to do a short presentation, and then we'll get going with the panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Val. I have the privilege of working alongside our three panelists through the Ambassador Program, as well as the rest of our youth who are involved in our youth road safety programs. But before we jump into our panel discussion today, I'd really like to take time to briefly speak to Parachute's journey to meaningfully engage youth in road safety and our transition from National Teen Driver Safety Week to the Canadian Youth Road Safety Program. Next slide, please. I know many of you have participated in National Teen Driver Safety Week before. So as some of you do know, it is an annual campaign that started in the US in 2007 and then came to Canada in 2013 under Parachute's leadership. The campaign is really aimed at youth aged 15 to 24, as we know that young people are killed in crashes at a higher rate than any other age group under the age of 75, really showing the need to target this demographic. And as a lot of you know, the campaign was very focused on individual behavior change around speeding, around distracted driving, and impaired driving as well, specifically among youth. Next slide, please. But then in 2021, we really started to shift away from focusing solely on driver behavior and move more towards a Vision Zero and safe systems approach, because we know that although driver behavior is a factor and is very important, there are many other factors that are at play when it comes to the causes of motor vehicle collisions. We also know that simply educating people, and specifically youth, on safe and unsafe practices is not effective in changing individual behavior when it is done on its own. Next slide, please. From our research and discussions with youth, we also learned that teen does not accurately describe the demographic we were targeting. It's much more on the lower spectrum of that age range. And then also driver is not representative, as we are seeing less and less youth in certain areas get their license, and more youth using other modes of transportation to get around. Again, just really demonstrating the need to kind of revamp our approach. Next slide, please. So we received funding from Transport Canada, in which we conducted a project over the course of 18 months to better understand how to meaningfully engage youth in road safety. And this project included conducting a national youth survey, as well as expert and peer-to-peer interviews that were done by members of the Youth Road Safety Council at the time. Next slide, please. These results were used to create a report and youth engagement framework that are available on Parachute's website, and I invite anyone to check those out if you're looking for a resource. And we use these tools to kind of re-examine and design our own youth road safety programming and change our approach to how we engage youth. Next slide, please. All of this led to the launch of the Canadian Youth Road Safety Program in 2024, which is now a year-round program that includes kind of 4 individual components, including the Canadian Youth Road Safety Council, Canadian Youth Road Safety Week, Snap for Change, as well as the Youth Ambassador Program. Next slide, please. Yes, so this is our Canadian Youth Road Safety Council. They are a group of very passionate individuals who I'm very lucky to work very closely with to kind of co-create our initiatives. They share their ideas and experiences around the best ways to engage youth in road safety, and they support our campaigns by reviewing our images and our messaging to make sure that they are engaging and relatable to youth. They're also given opportunities to develop and grow their professional skills and networks through the entirety of their 1-year term. Next slide, please. Then we have Canadian Youth Road Safety Week, which is a week-long campaign that runs during the 3rd week of October every year. It includes a social media campaign as well as several other events and initiatives focused on promoting youth road safety. Last year, we hosted a really great panel event alongside Desjardins Insurance at TMU that was actually moderated by one of our council members, and we had this really rich discussion on the power of youth in creating safe mobility, and we're looking forward to doing a very similar event this fall. Next slide, please. We also have Snap for Change, which is an initiative that launched during Canadian Youth Road Safety Week last year and really aims to promote advocacy for road safety within local communities across Canada. It is open to all ages, and people can participate by taking a photo or video of a road safety issue in their neighborhood, proposing their evidence-based solutions to address that problem, and then actually sending a letter or email to someone with influence, whether that's a mayor, a councillor, a local enforcement officer, or school admin, to actually advocate for those changes. Participants can receive a $100 gift card for their time and to compensate them for their advocacy efforts. And we have really seen a lot of great success with this initiative. Lots of participants have heard back from their community leaders who have acknowledged their concerns and agreed to put the solutions in place, which is really great. Next slide, please. Lastly, we have the Youth Ambassador Program, which really provides individuals and teams of youth with $600 grants to support youth-led road safety projects in their communities. So over the course of 8 months, these youth work with and they partner with local organizations as well as Parachute to support their project and to gain experience and really develop professional skills. Next slide, please. So this past year, we funded 18 ambassador projects from across Canada, including the 3 projects that are led by today's panelists. The projects cover a range of topics, but just to highlight a few really great ones, we have an ambassador advocating for safe speeds in Dunedin, and another one who has partnered with MAD Canada in Vancouver to create a film to debunk myths around impaired driving. We have another one of our ambassadors who is leading a positive ticketing campaign in Regina, and we also have a team of ambassadors who are promoting equestrian safety through social media, a social media campaign in New Brunswick. Lastly, this past February, we were able to support 2 ambassadors in attending the 3rd World Youth Assembly, as well as the 4th Global Ministerial Conference on Road Safety in Morocco as Canadian youth delegates representing youth. And while they were there, they met with the Associate Deputy Minister of Transport Canada alongside Valerie Smith from Parachute, and were able to contribute to some really important and great panel discussions on youth engagement in road safety alongside ministers from other countries. So this was really a great opportunity to, again, just boost the youth voice. Next slide, please. So just to wrap up, the goal of the Canadian Youth Road Safety Program really is to shift away from blaming youth for unsafe roads and instead partner with them and equip them with the knowledge, skills, and tools that they need, not only to engage in safer driving behavior and practices, but to be change makers and to be advocates for solutions that make safer roads for everyone. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll now pass it back to Valerie to begin our panel discussion.
Thanks, Anne. And I will ask the panelists to please turn their cameras on so we can see everyone. Wonderful, thank you. So before we begin, I just want to touch on something Anne said about our ambassadors who went to Morocco for the World Youth Assembly. I was there for the fourth Global Ministerial Conference on Road Safety with about 2,000 other delegates. And it was so amazing that they had this World Youth Assembly prior to the other conference, because many youth came from the World Youth Assembly and attended this government conference. And just the passion and the power of these young people. They were invited to come up and speak on big panels on the big stage with hundreds and hundreds of people watching them. One of our ambassadors, Robert, sat beside 3 different ministers on his panel to talk about the power of youth. So it gave such a rich flavor to this conference, having these young people there. So I just wanted to touch on that because it really inspired me, and it definitely made the conference more fun. So we'll jump right into some of our questions. And Alex, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about your background. I know I only gave a little blurb. Tell us about your background and how it connects to the work you're doing as a parachute ambassador.
For sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Alex. Like you had already said, I go to Trent University, about to go to my 4th year studying forensic science. Back home, though, I'm an avid cyclist. In the greater Hamilton area, especially in the Dundas Valley Conservation Area, I've been recreationally cycling since about 2014. And yeah, the Dundas Valley Conservation Area has an amazing network of multi-use trails for cycling, hiking, and horseback riding. So for about the past 10 years or so, I've been involved in 2 youth local cycling organizations, both riding, racing, and coaching. A big part of our programming happens on those local trail systems, having group rides or training on the Brantford Hamilton Rail Trail, the Main Loop, Headwaters Loop. The major challenge really with that is these trails frequently intersect with local throughway traffic, and many of those crossings are poorly marked or unmarked altogether, especially in the summer. Coming around the corners on the roads, the foliage is full, it's really blind corners, and there's also no indication of an upcoming crossing on the trails. This really means that trail users and motorists don't have the necessary cues ahead of time to stay safe and avoid potential accidents. So I applied with another club member for the road safety grant with Parachute Canada, and we submitted a proposal to increase safety at these crossings, reducing the risk of accidents for both trail users and motorists, advocating for better signage, increased physical safety measures, and partnering with the Golden Horseshoe Cycling Hub, a local cycling club in Hamilton, to deliver educational material to the youth at the club for better crossing practices and for youth and other club members.
Excellent, thank you. And Alex, what kind of success have you had? And what obstacles maybe have you faced trying to make real change happen?
I guess to start with success, working with a local organization, the Golden Horseshoe Cycling Hub, we've had access to their local connections, and really as an established organization with credibility, getting the opportunity to meet with local connections. For example, I've met with the local city councilor for our ward in Hamilton, and we discussed the project details, how it could be implemented. I got educated a bit more on local government and the steps it takes to implement projects like this. I'd say as for drawbacks, I think engagement to a certain extent. I think I would have liked to get a bit more engagement with the community, but other than that, pretty successful.
Amazing. And I just looked at the attendance list of who's on this webinar, and there's a number of people who work with youth. We have Teens Learn to Drive, We have Anne-Marie Hayes, who's a wonderful advocate for young people. So there's a lot of people in the room who do a lot of youth engagement already and are doing it well. For those who are just starting to work with youth or want to learn how to do it better, what advice would you give? And I'm specifically speaking about allowing for meaningful youth engagement, where we're actually listening and bringing young people into the picture. However, we still want to offer support. So how do you not micromanage young people as you invite them in to do this kind of work with your organization?
I guess overall, I mean, partnering with Parachute has been a great example of it. I mean, initially meeting with us to sort of define our project, narrow down the scope of our project and the goals that we wanted, but really giving almost full autonomy to us to complete the project. I mean, that's a big thing. It's not an organization is telling a youth what they should care about. It's what the youth actually care about. And yeah, you're just giving them that autonomy, the responsibility. With that comes motivation and yeah, the responsibility and motivation to complete a project that youth care about.
Yeah, and I think autonomy is a really great way to describe it because as an adult in this space, I know sometimes it's really hard to let go and to let go of that control that we might want to have over a program, especially if we were accountable to funders and so forth. But one thing we're learning at Parachute is just to trust the process. And there's going to be ebbs and flows, but the more we can step back and allow the program to develop and give autonomy to our participants, the better it is. So I love that word, and I think that's a great term for all of us. Thanks, Alex. I'm going to move over to Joshua. Hello, Joshua.
Hello, audio
Thanks for joining us. And you've got a lot of really cool things happening as well. So I'm excited for you to share with the audience a little bit about the work you're doing, a little information on your background and so forth.
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much, everyone, and happy Tactical Tuesday. I say that because Tuesday is known to be the most productive day, so I'm glad that you're spending those hours here. Well, I won't keep you for hours, but we're glad to have you here. And so my name is Joshua Little. I'm a biomedical engineering student. I focus on in my school for habit and decision making. And outside of that, as Alex, I used to be an avid cyclist until the lovely Toronto decided that they wanted to keep my bicycle for themselves. But what I'm working on is actually, we called it Full Ride. And this kind of came from going to events. As a student, we tried to go to a lot of networking events and conferences. And I experienced this problem that when I was leaving the conference, especially, there was so much traffic and so many people trying to order an Uber or Lyft, but no one was, how do I say, corresponding with each other, trying to figure out where they need to go. And so what you would find is that a lot of people are ordering single Ubers. In fact, 70% of Uber drivers are only carrying one person per ride. Well, not just Uber rideshare, they're only carrying one person. So if you think about the traffic and the environmental impact that this caused, that's kind of the birth of this idea, where it's a bigger platform. It's a community-based ride-sharing platform, bigger than what Uber would have, that's sometimes not available. And so that's the route we went down. We first went and, when we went and did our ride shares, we would ask drivers. We've spoken to over 30 riders over the last 6 months, because I actually started this before I joined Parachute. Parachute was such a wonderful combination towards what I was doing. And so we started to build out this app where people could figure out at the same conference and so on who's going in the same direction or same next location. And so that's where we are right now. Currently, we are actually going to be going back out now that the weather is better and doing those discovery to more students, because we're targeting students more, figuring out the safety part of it, because we recognize that the biggest thing is how safe can another person feel if they're joining together in that ride share. So that's what we're working towards right now.
Amazing, thank you. And yeah, we met Joshua at our event we did at TMU last year. And I remember you were in the audience and you raised your hand and asked a question of one of the the Desjardins senior people that was there. I think it was the president of Desjardins at the time.
Yes.
You know, tell us a little bit about you come across as very confident. You came and talked to us and you were so energized. You had a lot to say. How would organizations like some of the folks on the call, how would they help to inspire and support the work young people like you are doing?
You know, just, you know, as Alex and you were saying, just an openness first and foremost. And, you know, a lot of times these institutions, they have a lot of, you know, skepticism. And I think that's reasonable because, you know, you have to do things procedurally. But I think what we could definitely benefit from is in that space of skepticism, that's when they offer that, you know, extra hand in this terms of like, okay, I don't see this necessarily how you see it, but I'm trusting that there's a different angle and kind of saying, okay, you know, these are people that they're thinking, these are youth that are thinking. So although I don't see it, we're going to give this an opportunity. We're going to give this a chance, knowing that, you know, it might not work how we intended, but let's see if we can look through their lens by giving them that opportunity. And so, for example, in my space, that's, you know, we checked a lot of top spots where people travel to, so Scotiabank Arena, Eaton Center, some of those hot spots. And now we're figuring out how we can speak to those people and say, hey, we're going to have a lot of people potentially going to these areas. How can you help us facilitate this new app that we're doing, where it's likely going to cause some traffic in that area, but it's going to be beneficial because that traffic could drive sales in a certain place. But how can you use security to facilitate something like this? So just kind of those little assistants here and there where they're facilitating the thing that they don't necessarily believe in, but they're believing in us, not necessarily what we're working towards.
I love that. And so that's an interesting term to use as well, skepticism. And I think even as a young person, I remember feeling that way and feeling like I wasn't going to be trusted with the task I was being asked to do. So again, it's about feeling that it's important for us to help young people feel that we're sincerely trusting what they are hoping to do and supporting them, as you said. And Joshua, just coming back to your project, just curious, did something within the transport system? I know you said you saw a lot of Ubers on the road with single occupants. But was there something else that was happening within the transportation system that really pushed you to actually take this next step?
Oh, for sure. So, you know, with that single use per Uber driver, there was a lot more traffic, and with a lot more traffic, it's a numbers game. A lot more traffic means a lot more incidents, means a lot more distracted driving, means a lot more impatience while driving. And so you can see how it just kind of domino effects into those incidents happening. In fact, once when I was traveling, I don't know if anyone went to Taylor Swift's concert. I didn't, but there was a lot of traffic that day, and there was also a lot of incidents that day. If you actually check the news, there was just so much chaos that was going on, and one of the big reasons was that these ride shares, even like the T2C, these places were overwhelmed with just the poor flow of the traffic that was being happening, because everyone is trying to get somewhere first, but not necessarily working together to make it move faster for everyone. And so that experience and similar ones like that is what really caused that real, man, this could be so much better. This is so like suffocating how it's just a matter of like, we're just gonna stalemate here until somebody frees up, someone gives someone else an opportunity to move. So that's what kind of birthed this idea.
I love that. And there's so many cross-cutting themes as well. You've got congestion, you have risk of dangerous incidences happening. You've got environmental factors, etc. So I love that your project's really connecting all those pieces. And Julie is going to put some information, Julie or Anne will put some information into the chat on Joshua's project if anyone has any further questions about it, because he's just touching the surface of what the project's all about. Thanks, Joshua. Julia, over to you. So Julia, you're part of the transportation program at the City of Vaughan. Really looking forward to hearing your insight, because I know you do a lot of work with other young people as well. I also can say that Parachute, because of our work with you this year, we're really looking at expanding our youth ambassadorship program to work specifically in collaboration with cities. So Vaughan is becoming a bit of a role model. No pressure, but tell us a little bit about your work and about the work you're doing with youth engagement in Vaughan.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you, Parachute, for inviting me onto this panel as well. But yeah, so my name is Julia Gallio-Talanza. I am a junior engagement coordinator in the Transportation Planning and Engineering Division at the City of Vaughan. I also lead our Transportation Youth Ambassador program at the city as well. And so I guess a little bit about that along with my background. So I guess a bit more about my background, which can explain, I guess, how we've developed the Youth Ambassador program. So I am a recent University of Toronto graduate, and I specialized in health studies and political science. So during my time in the program, I developed a deep understanding and passion for safe and accessible community development and community outreach, which I find now directly influences the work that I do. And then in my role as a lead on the Transportation Youth Ambassador program, I essentially liaise between secondary and post-secondary students and our transportation professionals at the city. I also support the team in various public outreach events as well. So not only am I working with a lot of students, but also just the community in general, and providing different opportunities for youth to kind of be engaged in the transportation planning work that we do at the city. And then to provide, I guess, a bit more context about the actual program. So our Transportation Youth Ambassador program, our main goal is to amplify young adult voices in municipal transportation decision-making by giving youth both the opportunity and skill set to be informed about the decision-making processes and transportation planning in general at the city, and as well as how it affects them directly, but at the same time, give them an opportunity to also go into their community, especially their school community, and gain feedback to provide back to city staff. And so this program essentially helps city staff understand the transportation priorities of youth, and it also supports the growing future leaders through youth-focused engagement initiatives that are developed and delivered by young adults as well. So yeah, that's a bit of a summary of the program.
Thanks, Julia. And given you're still young as well, how do you connect to not just the youth you're working with, but to the program? You know, was there a personal connection to this work? And how do you build your connections with this fairly large group of young people you're working with?
For sure. Yeah, so with I guess connecting with the youth that I work with, I guess it really started because I've seen the development of this program for a couple of years now. So I've kind of also seen the program grow, and so I've also grown with the program. So some of these students coming in, I can kind of relate to how they feel as well. A lot of them can be, quite timid, quite, unsure of themselves. This is new for a lot of them. A lot of them, this is their first volunteer opportunity. And so I can kind of relate to them in that sense where I understand where they're starting out. They kind of come into essentially like an entire workplace, which can be very intimidating for them as well. And voicing your opinion or your thoughts and your questions can, at least I had found, and I think some of the students initially find it the same way as well, it can be quite intimidating for them. They might not want to voice how they really feel. So I can kind of relate to them in that sense. And then it also provides me with the opportunity to provide a space to help them feel safe, and also just, provide them with the right supports that they need to kind of grow and develop and kind of gain the skills that they need to not only provide us feedback or, speak up, but also kind of go out into their communities and be comfortable with, sharing different information or even like their thoughts and having these, more difficult or challenging discussions that they might not be used to.
Thank you. That's super helpful. And I'll start with you, and then I'll open this up to Joshua and Alex. I know Parachute, for example, we've had youth programs before. We've had them in the high schools, we've had teams, as have colleagues from other organizations, and retention is difficult. Not only retention in terms of young people being committed to the program and staying committed, but also just getting young people interested in this space anyway. So the safe mobility and the road safety space. So that's two questions, really, but start with the second one, which is as practitioners working in public health and working in the road safety and safe mobility space, how can we attract more young people to the work we're doing? We know that young people are being killed and are being seriously injured on the roads, on their bikes, walking, driving. Yet it's safety, right? And a lot of young people, safety doesn't resonate with them. They don't necessarily want to be involved in safety projects. So I'll start with you, Julia. If you can just let us know your thoughts on how practitioners like myself can better inspire and recruit young people into our programs.
For sure. I think that's a great question. I think that that's also something that we had struggled with as well, kind of getting youth engaged. A lot of youth don't, at least from my experience, don't necessarily even really know much about, transportation planning and things like that as well. So trying to attract them into our program was a bit of an initial challenge. I think by maybe framing it in a way that they relate to, can make it really attractive. One of the main things that we used to attract students into our program was kind of having that like give and take. So when they're, in our program, they also gain like volunteer hours, which I think made it really attractive to a lot of students. So kind of having that incentive kind of helps, maybe causes that like initial interest, and then they can kind of start to learn and maybe it'll pique their interest. But we were also surprised actually how many students were really interested in transportation as well. And so just maybe providing information and promoting the program in a way that might make more sense to the audience, to the, let's say high school students or youth in that way. But yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And Joshua, your thoughts on that. You're a biomedical engineering student. And we know that engineering is very closely connected to road safety and road design. So even from a university perspective, how do we bring those engineering brains into more of the preventative and public health discussions and work on road safety?
Oh, for sure. As you were saying, engineer, I keep hearing the banter that goes on. So whenever there's a problem anywhere on the streets, we go to our civil engineering friends and we're like, what happened? Like, come on, you gotta do better. It's like, bro, I'm not even there yet. So I'll split this in terms of for the youth, and I'll say that not in university yet, and then university students. And so
Sure.
I'll start off with the ones not in university yet. I think, well, one of the biggest things that I've found with the interactions I've had is really a communication barrier, in the sense that they actually do get what we're saying if we say it to them the right way, right? So, to that piece what Julia was referring to, is being able to really relate to them. And I think that's going to take the buy-in of a few that are already interested in this space, like just being able to find those and then having them buy into the others. And I think, incentive is always a good thing. The good thing about them being people in high school is that it's easier to incentivize them than it is for maybe a young adult that's working or might have strapped for more time. So yeah, that piece where it's just like, I think a lot of things that happen at Scotiabank Arena, I keep bringing back Scotia here, so they should definitely chime into this. A lot of events happen there. I think being able to have the high schoolers get, let's say it's a special seat or things like that, maybe tickets. It's always like, or something that they can post on their Instagram or whatever, that they went here. And it's not too formal in the sense of like a formal setting, because they never, I don't know why, they don't see formal as cool. So always trying to make it seem like it's something that only a select few were able to do because they were a part of Parachute and so on. And I think that will open it up to a lot more. And then for the civil engineers and transportation engineers, structural engineers, I think, this is more so going towards what they're allowed to do in the space. A lot of times, so a lot of my cohorts, they just came off of co-op, and it's that piece of being able to go on site with the senior engineers, being able to open that up to be like, okay, this is what's happening on these roads. I have one friend in particular told me about how they do for expansion to make sure the roads don't crumble too much. I know that anybody that goes down to waterfront, they'll see that a lot of the pillars are crumbling. You can see the inner pipes. And so I think being able to really be a part of that, and their suggestions help in terms of, it's not just paperwork that they're doing, because I hear that a lot, is being able to really allow these junior engineers to add real value to the work site. I think that's what will be the big changes for my civil engineer and transport engineers counterparts.
Yeah, and that's interesting, because that's one of the reasons why we developed this advocacy project, right? It's because we wanted to move away from a channel of communication where we were doing presentations or handing out brochures or whatever it might be, to really getting people on the ground and identifying problems that are in their community, and then not just identifying them, but then looking to solve them. And as Alex's work as well is coming up with a process to engage political leaders and make real change. So I love that. I think it's so important, is whether you're a young person or a professional, is to be on the ground and to really have the chance to experience what's going on. So thank you.
Of course.
And Alex, how about you? What are your thoughts on that?
I think to like better engage youth in sort of just advocacy efforts in general, really like identifying youth who might have the relevant skill set or work ethic. I know that's pretty personal to me. The grant opportunity was brought to me because someone thought I'd be a good fit, a good leader. And again, like I said earlier, with the autonomy, like that trust and responsibility was pretty motivating to do that. I know that's not really, it might not work on like a large scale, like identifying youth. But I guess from that, like when you have youth working projects like this, really like celebrating their accomplishments, not taking them as an organization's own, saying, "Hey, we worked with youth. Look at what we've done." It's really, "Hey, look at what this youth has done. This youth leader has done this." So that's really, I think, enticing to other people because it inspires them, and it validates the youth leader to, again, complete more stuff. So that might help with the retention side of things.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you. And on that note, skills. So we have these programs like the Ambassador Program. Other groups have a road safety committee or council. And we want to give back as well. We want to incentivize, not just maybe with grant money, but offering capacity building, skill development. And we don't want to make assumptions about what you want to learn or what would make you a better advocate. So I'll start with you, Alex, and go back around. But what with our program, for example, if we were to do a training session and bring in an expert, what is something, do you think, that would be important to build stronger young advocates in road safety, or really any other space, that social justice space, that might be important?
Like a particular skill?
Yeah, like a skill development of some sort.
I'd say personally, for relating to my project, maybe some skill building on writing like formal report documents. We were taking the survey data and then putting it into a report so we can then distribute that to like the stakeholders in the project, and also for our like end of project town hall meeting to inform all the members about the work that we've been doing. But I think really learning how to structure and write that formal report would be a really good skill to have.
Excellent. Joshua, how about you?
Man, Alex, you took it out of my. So I literally tried to think of something else because that's the first thing I considered. But I think back to we throw the word leadership around a lot in any space really, and I think sometimes it doesn't really reflect what that should be. And I say this because a lot of the times you have students that the reason that they're not stepping up isn't because they might not have the correct answer, but it's somebody else is more capable to do it. Somebody else can step up. That I'll give someone else a chance kind of mentality. And I find that it actually doesn't work because everyone is doing that. So no one's really stepping up, or you'll find the same people stepping up all the time. And that same person might have the confidence, but not necessarily the right answer. And so what I think is being able to bring, how do I say it? It's not necessarily just a workshop, but bring a real, maybe like a event where students can be broken off into groups and kind of train that leadership, that leading skill to be like, okay, I might not have the right answer. Just really going back to, I might not have the right answer, but I'm going to mention it because they never know. So I think that's another big thing that they need to learn. And that practical skill would be um, really being able to connect with the institutes that surround them. So a lot of times, even I struggle with this. So it's like, okay, I actually don't know who I need to speak to in my community
Mm.
necessarily to help me with this thing. I think being able to give them a roadmap of whatever problem they're tackling, look for this kind of position or look for this kind of person. And I think that would help us get further a lot quicker.
Yeah, and I love the roadmap as well because after doing this for 2 years, we're a parachute. We're recognizing the need to do just that. So we're actually going to be building an advocacy toolkit, and we're not going to be building it. We're going to be doing it in collaboration with our youth council and feedback from the ambassadors. But yeah, it's like, what do you need to do? There's a problem in there's not a separated bike lane in in an area that you would ride your bike to school. What next? What do you do? Who do you talk to? How do you engage someone who's actually going to help you make a difference? So we've heard that loud and clear from everyone we've been working with, um, that young people need those tools. And again, it's not just young people; it's people in the community who confront problems every day but don't know what to do with it. So stay tuned for that advocacy toolkit that we'll be building. And Julia, how about you? You probably do a lot of skill leadership training with your young people anyway. So tell us about what you think is working best.
For sure, yeah, we definitely do. And I think I'll echo what both Alex and Joshua said. I think we try and incorporate that in what we do with our Youth Ambassador program. But I guess to add on to that as well, something that we found is helping, we're still kind of seeing how it's going with this newest round of ambassadors. But a big thing that we're trying to I guess, teach our ambassadors or a skill set that we're kind of trying to impart on them is just learning how to engage different audiences effectively. So what we did specifically for our program was we have at the city our corporate communications team. And so a few people on that team specifically work in engagement. So we were able to actually bring them in for one of our learning sessions that we do for the students. And they were able to actually kind of do like a working session where the students can kind of work together, test out these different methods of engaging depending on the initiatives that they wanted to do in their schools. And so they were able to kind of bounce ideas off of each other, work with kind of, experts in the field in a sense. And I think they gained a lot from that experience. And I think they learned a lot on just how to, even just, things like presentations. They were able to really learn how to, word things properly, make them more engaging, how to even promote an initiative that they're doing. So I think that's a very important skill for them to have, and I think that that's something that is a big part of what we do in our work as well. So far it's been quite successful. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it's about not assuming, and Joshua made reference to this earlier, not assuming that people are comfortable. All of us in this panel might be comfortable getting up and talking, but that's certainly not the norm with a lot of other young people. And by helping to build those skills, you're going to be helping to set them up for success in all sorts of different areas, in everything they do. So we often hear presentation skills and leadership training around being able to vocalize what someone wants to say. I see one question in the Q&A, so I'm actually going to pause so we don't go too long and miss that question. But I have a few more questions, and also I want to bring up, when we did our practice run, Joshua said, you know, is there an opportunity to for each of us to ask each other a question? And at the time I said, well, I don't know if that's going to really fit into our webinar, but I'm going to meaningfully engage this group and listen to what Joshua had recommended. So I'm going to take a Q&A and then just give you guys an opportunity if any of you have questions for each other, just based on our organic discussion today. So thank you, Joshua, for prompting that. Okay, so this question is from Laura. Laura is with an organization that teaches teens to ride bikes. She says so many urban kids have never had that experience or have skills to use bikes as transportation. We think it would build more empathetic road users, but wondering if we have any ideas on this or suggestions on how to measure it. Also wondering what your experience is in your areas. Do teens ride bike to schools? Why or why not? So I think we'll start off with the question around, and maybe Alex, I'll take this to you. How do we build a culture of helping young people to ride their bikes safely? And then what are your thoughts on do your peers use biking as a way to get around their communities?
Personally, I mean, my close friend group, I've gotten all into cycling. We get around that way, especially at school when we don't all have access to cars. I know my personal experience as a kid, I mean, it's such a freeing experience to be able to hop on a bike and go visit your friends or go to the store without needing to use a car. Personally, where I live, a decent amount of people rode their bikes to my high school and elementary school. Obviously, recently I've seen a lot more people riding like electric scooters. But yeah, that multimodal transportation to get to school, I think totally. I think more cyclists on the road, young cyclists, would definitely create a more empathetic space for just road users in general. I think a big challenge with maybe you said in urban areas, maybe the infrastructure is not there. Bikes are also really expensive as well. So just getting a bike, that kind of stuff. Joshua said his bike was stolen. That's another big deterrent. As for measuring who would be interested in biking to school, maybe you could get information on how close they live to the school. But also trying to get kids bikes. So with alternative funding, that kind of stuff, because it is a pretty big step getting a bike, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because I know at Parachute we're really promoting as part of our road safety efforts multimodal. You know, and we know that there's evidence that the more people that are out of cars and are using different modes of transport, the safer they will be. However, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I would certainly be very, very nervous for her to ride her bike to school, which is only a 15-minute bike ride, because there's very few separated cycling lanes, and the rules of the road and so forth. So Laura, your question is very good. It's complex, and I don't think a lot of, especially in urban, densely populated areas, I don't know how many young people would actually feel comfortable navigating that space, because it is, in some cases you're taking your life in your own hands going out there. So I'll just pause there, and I'll just ask the panelists if you guys have any questions for one another. We have about 8 minutes left, and then I'm going to wrap up with one question when we're done. So Joshua, given this was your idea, I'm going to let you
I
start.
was kind of keeping the floor open first. I didn't want to seem like that person. But sorry, to your point, I actually had a question to Julia because she talked about the different forms of engagement, and I was curious, like, do you use like a it's like this is more a logistical thing. Like, how are you managing this? Because it seems like a very like a broadening group of people. How are you managing, and what's the communication channels look like? Because for me, that definitely help with an active channel. Sorry, an active channel does keep a lot of that engagement in any of these spaces. Having an active channel is very important. So I'm just curious how you do that.
For sure, that's a great question, and I think it's something that can be quite complicated for our youth ambassador program, and also just I guess with the city as well, because we have to follow certain rules as well, and we are working with students. So again, there's also rules with that. So what we had done, what we had found the easiest was we created and let me know if I'm answering your question correctly as well. Um, we created an email address specifically for our program. And so then all interaction, so there's a few people on the city side who are working on kind of facilitating this program. And so it's about 4 or 5 of us. We all kind of work together to manage that email address. And then through that email address, we have our communication with all of our students, all of our ambassadors, along with any, concerns or anything with like teachers and different stakeholders that are part of the program. So we try and keep it as like one channel, and that's kind of that email address. And then a way we kind of just keep in touch and keep that, I guess, open line of communication with the students as well is after we do so with our students, maybe to provide a bit of context, we do like 3 mandatory learning sessions with the ambassadors, and then they kind of decide the initiatives they want to do, then they complete their initiatives, and over the time that they do their initiatives, we do like a bi-weekly check-in. So every other week, we have them drop into our meeting, and then we just kind of have like a quick informal chat about kind of what they're working on, what they might be struggling with, where they may need support, and we can kind of adjust from there. And so this is kind of the first time we've done the drop-in sessions, and so far it seems to be working quite well. And then from there we can kind of gauge, who may need more support, who seems to be okay on their own, and supporting the students in the different ways that they need. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it definitely did. It's funny. Simplicity is key because I thought you were gonna say, "Oh yeah, we use some, Slack channel with like something like that." But it's like, no, just one email. Everybody
Yeah.
has access to it. That's very good.
hmm
So I might consider that. And just to follow up with what you had said earlier, Valerie, it's with I'm downtown Toronto, so I actually don't ride in the city when I had my bike. I ride out of the city. So if I'm ever going on my bike, it's not to go around the city. It's usually to get out of it, like to the parks or so on. So that would be something to consider. I would like to see a bike day. I know Denmark does it, and I thought that was very successful there. So it'd be nice to see something like that in downtown Toronto.
Well, there's your next youth ambassador project. Great idea. Alex or Julia, do you have any questions for one another before we wrap up with our final question?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
I have
Okay.
one.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah, good, go.
I'm not sure if this is too broad, but I'm just curious to know, like, what was the one biggest challenge that you had both found with your initiatives?
On a personal front, or actually, I'll let Alex take it away first. He seems like he has something.
I guess, yeah, like personally, I mean, balancing the work with school and other commitments. But yeah, like I had said, really just like the engagement, getting the numbers that we wanted for feedback on our project. I think that was the biggest hurdle.
Oh, for me, this is more on the technical side. So the software wise, it makes sense. We have things following, and then this thing hit us security. Like it was always a concern, but when we really started to figure out like how is this gonna work security wise, which is why we say we need the engagement from those places, Scotiabank, Eaton Center. I hope me constantly saying this makes them want to reach out to me. But security piece is still something we're trying to figure out because, you know, one of the person that's helping me, one of my team members said, you know, it would take a lot for him to want his younger sister to join this because it's a third party. You know, you're getting people to, you know, even if they're going in the same main destination like Scotiabank, where it's heavily, you know, it's a very busy place. There's still that element of, okay, how do I make it extremely safe? And that went down to rabbit hole of vulnerable sector check. How does Uber actually check the people now, like their drivers, especially their drivers? And I recognize that it's not necessarily a very robust thing. Like they check your license, they do a background check, but there's a lot of open ends. And so that actually became a sub project, which is how do we make a vulnerable sector check faster? Because especially in the city, you're thinking at least 4 to 6 weeks. So can we do a summarized version that gets exactly just the things that we need for our rideshare technology? So that's something that we're still figuring out.
Yeah, and the rabbit hole is something that always comes up, right? You know, you have your project, and then once you start taking a deeper dive, there's all these different rabbit holes to go down, to make your project better, or to, you know, as part of the learning. So that's a great point. So I'm going to wrap up and just ask everyone to give me a fairly short answer, but I know colleagues in my space are constantly looking for the best way to you talked about communication, Joshua, but outward-facing communication with young people on whether it be social media. I guess we'll just stick with that. We don't have a lot of time, but in terms of social media and your specific age group and demographic and circle that you're working in, what social media channel are we supposed to be finding and connecting with young people on? So, Alex, maybe I'll start with you.
You mean for like intentional outreach to advertise
Yes.
these programs?
Yeah.
As much as I'm trying to like stay away personally from social media, whether we like it or not, probably short form content. Young people are really on that a lot. TikTok, Instagram, stories, reels, TikToks. Yeah, I think that's probably the main form. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Joshua, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think less so much the channel and who is making the advertisement. I think if they're making the advertisement themselves, it'd be very successful. A real estate agent asked someone to do it. It got 1.2 million likes, and it was just them breathing in. And it was so, I can't exactly get it myself, but the people in the chat it found it hilarious and it got a lot of engagement. So I think they also need to be the one editing it for their own group. Like that's how different they are.
Young people. Yeah. Yeah. Julia, thoughts on the use of social in our programming?
For sure. I think it plays a really key role in you know, the work that we're doing. And even for us, it's something that, you know, we've kind of struggled with as well. We found that at least with our Instagram channel, through like the City of Vaughan Instagram, a lot of students had heard about us through their parents because their parents follow the City of Vaughan account. So I think, as it was kind of mentioned, I guess the channels that you use and like the audience from those channels is really important. Short form content, again, as it was kind of mentioned, I think is pretty popular. Or even if there's like particular influencers, like certain people who can kind of share the message. So it's not just coming from an organization, but it's coming from, let's say, a face, like a person that young people, you know, relate to or kind of look up to. It might, you know, our message might translate a little bit easier, and it might be a bit more attractive that way.
Yeah, we do use influencers, and we find it really does. You find the right influencer, and the messages really resonate with the audience. So thank you. So we are at the end of our session, and I want to thank all of you for joining. And this won't be the end of our discussions because we're still working with all three of you. But yeah, thanks for taking the time out of your day and for sharing some of your thoughts with us, and for putting the time into preparing for this, and so forth. And keep up the great work. And you know where to find us if you have any questions. And thank you everyone for joining this call today. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for having us.